ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It is your boy Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we're going to be talking about the X-Men number 11 issue, and I was caught by surprise. I did not expect what I saw in these pages. So most of this issue, a lot of it is, for the most part, a little bit of setup, a little bit of, kind of setting up domino pieces to be knocked down as we get a little further along. We've already had in the previous issue, Cyclops go full on revolutionary mode. Love to see it. Love to see Cyclops in his rightful place. I love to see it. I love to watch Cyclops work when it's Cyclops. And that is something that's kind of going to get Cyclops, I won't necessarily say in trouble, but something that is, a ghost from his past is going to show up and going to make things a little weird for him. And that is his father, Corsair. Corsair, for those who, I would forgive you if you were not familiar with Corsair of the Starjammers, because, when it comes to bad dads in comic books, there's no shortage. There's no shortage of them. But Corsair is one of the worst fathers you could probably ever point to. And not because he was abusive, not because he was, mean, because he drank too much, because he worked long. I mean, yes, you could technically say he worked long hours, but it was because he was just never there. I mean, in the early days, yes, he was there, but after the plane crash that ultimately led to his winding up in space, he just never really ever bothered to come back very often. I mean, he does from time to time, but he just kind of threw himself whole ass into his space pirate lifestyle after the fact. And even once he realized that his kids were all still alive, that, Cyclops, Havoc, and then later Vulcan were all alive, he didn't plant roots and decide to stay on Earth and be with his family. He was out running around chasing skunk ass and, flying ships and whatnot. He was like, man, hey, I got to go. And he even, to a certain point, has done things in the past that have directly dragged Cyclops into the middle of conflict. We saw this very recently during the Krakoan era, where he quite literally brought a brood invasion to the X-Men. It was quite weird and just crazy. But, it is what it is at this point. And we've also seen very recently, if you've been reading Stephanie Phillips' Phoenix book, Corsair had recently shown up there and was hanging out, palling around with Jean Grey. And it was just them, no Cyclops or anything like that. So that was kind of a rare moment there. So it was kind of nice to see that. But yeah, even during the Krakoan era, Corsair, who literally had a way to get back and forward to the Summers home on the moon, he had a Krakoan gate. He could literally get there in a jiffy if he wanted. We didn't see him very often. It's not to say he didn't show up, but I'm just saying, just from a reader's perspective, we didn't see him very often. And it's even brought up here in this issue, something I actually was shocked that was actually referenced. But during the New Mutants run early on in the Krakoan era, back when both Jonathan Hickman and Ed Brisson were working on that book, there was an instance where Starjammers had left the New Mutants high and dry in Shi'ar space, and it was all over what was effectively them stealing a brood egg, or at least their attempt to do so. And it just, Corsair is just, he's terrible. He's a terrible dad. Like honestly, he's that dad that you see in every story. And some of you, I don't know, maybe some of you have a dad like this. He's that dad that no matter how much you want to believe that he has changed, that he has turned his life around, he's no longer got that gambling problem, he's no longer got that alcohol addiction or drug addiction problem, or he's gotten out of whatever problematic thing that person does. Every time you think, man, I really should not give this guy the benefit of the doubt, I really should not believe that he's turned things around, but he's my dad. And you believe him. You believe him. And then that motherfucker just don't show up. He leaves you sitting there like Will Smith.
How come he don't want me, man?
That is Corsair in a nutshell, because he hasn't changed. Or maybe he has this time around, because that's kind of the rub here, is that Corsair has shown up. So clearly he's in trouble. Clearly he has a problem. Why else would he show up on Earth to, see his son? 99.9% of the time when we see Corsair, it's because he has a problem and he's hoping his son will help him fix it. In this case, it's not true. You see, and I like the setup here in this, and I'm very interested to know exactly what is the actual angle here. Not Corsair's angle, though I'm pretty sure we'll find out maybe he's working an angle, or maybe Jed McKay will subvert expectation and actually have Corsair be a decent father. We'll have to wait and see on that. But what I find of note is that, yeah, there are bounty hunters that are hunting down what we think is Corsair, but it's actually not who they're looking for. They're looking for Cyclops. Now, the question becomes, why are they looking for Cyclops? Why do they not give a shit about Corsair? They're not there for him. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure that, because he definitely has a bounty on his head, he actually even points out that his bounty is 2.5 million credits, but they're not looking for him. They want the bigger fish. 2.5 million credits is nothing to sneeze at. So that means that Cyclops' bounty is astronomically high. To have those same bounty hunters ignore him entirely, they're only going after the X-Men, and Cyclops literally just threw himself between Corsair and these alien bounty hunters, not necessarily to protect Corsair, because Cyclops feels that these bounty hunters were led to Earth by Corsair, that they're gonna harm mutants and potentially humans too, just by their presence being there. He's thinking he's doing the right thing, but in fact he is not. This is one of those moments where Cyclops actually had the right energy. He had the right energy for the situation at the wrong time. And that's what I think I really like about what this issue is done, what Jed McKay is doing with this particular story arc, is that your dad. Your dad ain't shit. He ain't shit. He's never gonna change. He is always gonna be on that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air bullshit. And you have tried all your life to try and get this guy to turn around, to try to get him to notice you, to try to get him to hang around. And now you've just accepted that he is who he is. But now that you've accepted that, you've now decided that you don't have to listen to anything he has to say. You don't have to be bothered with anything he has to say. And this is the one time Cyclops actually should have listened to Corsair, because Corsair was right. Being right must run in the family. I don't know. It's got to be a thing. Got to be a thing that runs in the family. Except for Havoc. Havoc is rarely, if ever, right. Vulcan is almost always wrong. Maybe it's just only a thing that comes down the pipe once in a generation. Is what I feel. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe once in a generation. That's what that's probably what it is. But no, why do these bounty hunters want Cyclops? We don't know. I can't think of anything just immediately off the top of my head as to the reasoning behind it. But we know these guys came prepared. They came prepared. They actually showed up with ruby quartz armor, knowing that they were going to run into Cyclops. They expected it. They knew it was going to happen. So the question now becomes, now what do they do with him? Where does he go? Is he going to be taken to the Shi'ar? Is he going to be turned over to the Kree Skrull Empire? And I racked my brain. I literally sat here thinking like, man, what is it that he could have done? And once again, knowing Jed McKay, it's going to be a deep cut. It is going to be a deep cut. This is no shade, Jed. I know you'll probably see this. It's not shade. I promise you it's not shade, but I've read enough of your stuff. It's going to be a deep cut. It's not going to be any shit anyone's actually thinking about or you could suss out. So I'm not even going to try to figure this out. But the one thing that makes sense to me as to maybe what is potentially going on here, maybe this might have something to do with the Phoenix. So yeah, we have seen Cyclops invoke the name of Jean Grey quite a bit, not just in this series, but in previous series when people are threatening his life. And we literally just saw in the last issue, especially, Cyclops said, hey, if you kill me, then you're gonna have to deal with the Phoenix. But I also wonder if this might have something to do with what's going on over on Stephanie Phillips' side of things with the Phoenix, because Jean Grey has leveled up her power to just such strengths and heights that she was already effectively immortal. Like, I mean, she could die, but she could always come back. She just had to figure the whole thing out. And that was something she's technically done a few times already by this point. I wonder if just everything that Jean has been doing over on her side of things. And I know I've kind of fallen off on doing videos about the Phoenix book. It's really just more for time than anything else. I'll probably do some of the things. I always say I'm gonna probably do something about the Phoenix book, but I feel like that's one of those I'm probably gonna sound terrible. I'm gonna kind of trade weight that one. I'm not really worried about trying to cover that one like every single time that it comes out. And honestly, that way lies madness because of so many other books that I also would rather talk about. There's always books that are fighting for my attention. And there's so many great comics. We literally live in what I feel is a golden era of comics, because every week I look up and there are, every Wednesday, I feel like there are no less than 10 or 15 different comics across Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, and Dynamite. Like, there's just tons of comics. I'm like, ooh, I want to do a video on all of them. But at the end of the day, I'm one guy. So there you go. We're going to do the ones, or at least try to do the ones more often than not that will actually not like tank the channel. Because when I try and do those other ones, y'all like, no, do that one, and whatever, or YouTube doesn't show it to you, but whatever. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see on that. I'm not sure what's going on with Alpha Flight in this issue, because some of you may or may not know what was going on during the Fall of X. Alpha Flight was actively aiding mutants in what was effectively a mutant underground railroad to help get mutants off the planet Earth while Orcus was running roughshod all over it. And when they got found out, every last single member of the team was, for all intents and purposes, put in prison. The only one who wasn't was Dr. Heather Hudson, who at the time, she was suffering from injuries during her time as Nemesis. So it's difficult to say what's going on here, but like right around the end of this issue, we see that both Vindicator, Guardian, Snowbird, Puck, and Marina, all of them are gunning towards the X-Men right now. Now, they're kind of setting up as though they're going to get into a fight. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case. Alpha Flight and the X-Men are, or at least should be, on at least half-assed decent terms with everything that was going on during the Fall of X, and the whole thing with Department H throwing in there a lot with Orcus. It's difficult to say what's going on here, because really, by all rights and purposes, they should all be in jail, but because of all that mess with Fall of X, they very likely got out of prison. We really haven't seen anyone from Alpha Flight since the Fall of X, so it's difficult to say exactly what's going on here. But whatever it is happening, I'm gonna go on a limb and say Alpha Flight's not necessarily there to fight them. I think they're just really trying to help out, because as Vindicator says, you're doing this shit over Canada, so we got to take care of business. Now, this might lead to some shenanigans between Alpha Flight and X-Men, but I feel like they're more on each other's side than against. But you never know here, or we'll just have to play this one out. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I really enjoyed that Fall of X Alpha Flight book, even though I felt like it didn't, and I guess that's because a lot of things, with the X-Men around that time frame of Fall of X, a lot of those series are just really rushed. I feel like Ed Brisson deserved a little more time to cook on this one, but hey, it's neither here nor there. Point is, Alpha Flight's back. One thing I thought was actually really cool is that the character Jennifer, who the X-Men encountered several issues back when they were going toe-to-toe with the upstarts and Trevor Fitzroy, well, that character, we thought that maybe they only had this one specific ability because they showed up and they kind of had, very fish-like features, so it's like, oh, okay, so this character is like a Morlock style character, a mutant who their mutation is very visible. They can't hide that they're a mutant. Well, as it turns out, Jennifer's abilities go a lot deeper than what we thought. Initially, when we saw her, it's like, yeah, okay, she clearly is a mutant who looks very fish-like. She clearly has fish-related powers or water-related abilities. That's actually not true. She doesn't. Her power is that she's a metamorph. Basically, whatever she puts her mind to, she can metamorph her physiology to match what she's thinking about. So when she was being chased by the upstarts just a few issues ago, and she was trying to get away from them, she says in this issue she was thinking about diving into the river because that was the only place she could run to that she thought she could escape. So her body transformed her into a fish-like creature, something that could survive in the water. Well, in this case, she learns that if she focuses on something else, she focuses, as Beast instructs her, focus on flying. See what happens. Suddenly, she no longer looks like a fish person. She looks like bird person, for the Rick and Morty fans out there. But yeah, she's got bird person vibes now, and it's wild. I like this, because for one, it's not to say that her power set 4 was disappointing, but I thought it was definitely something that was kind of weird for the locale that they were going to be hanging out. It's like, man, dude, being a fish person in Alaska, probably not gonna work out terribly well for you. But as it turns out, she can literally do whatever she wants. She can probably turn to a polar bear person if she wants, who knows. But the other thing is she's trying to figure out if she can turn back to normal. And I think this is where things are gonna get kind of interesting, because if you know Beast, I feel like Beast around the later points of his career had kind of stopped caring about looking normal. This is a Beast who comes from an era where he was accepting of the fact that he had turned into a big blue monster. Because once again, this is not the Beast we have known all this time. This is the Beast who hails from like the early to mid 80s. Who has no knowledge of anything after his time in the Defenders. He does not remember coming back to the X-Men. He does not remember combating the legacy virus or bringing back the original X-Men from the past to the present or being the head of X-Force. This is a Beast who is, I won't say like, oh, he's relatively fresh into being the big blue furry beast, but I mean, he hasn't necessarily been big blue furry beast for a long time. So this is a Beast that also is very likely probably interested in the idea of being able to look normal again. And he's already kind of shown some hints and teases that he kind of wants to have some of that knowledge that X-Force Beast had. And I don't know. Well, I think that, Jed, as always, he's going to subvert expectation on this, but I do wonder if, anything about that is going to, kind of play dividends in the story arc, especially if we discover that Jennifer can figure out how to change her physiology back to normal. And if she does, I wonder if Hank is going to try and figure out how to use her genes to turn himself back to normal. That is not an un-Beast thing to do. Beast has done far worse. He has done far worse things. But I feel like if he does, maybe he'll make things worse somehow. But I feel like we just got back, the oh, my stars and garters Beast. So I don't know if Jed's going to fuck that up just right away. I feel like he's going to let us have regular Beast for as long as humanly possible. Wash the taste out of our mouths of the Bendis to Hickman era, or actually rather Bendis to Percy era Beast. I think he's gonna let us ride on that one. But I don't know. You guys, let me know what you think. You think that? What do you think's gonna happen with Beast? You think Beast is ever gonna like? You think we're gonna? You think we're gonna see him flip, or you think we're gonna keep him? I don't know. You guys tell me what you think about Cyclops too. Why do you think Cyclops is got the $60 billion double dollar bounty on his head? You guys let me know what you think.